Okay. Eliyahu, you're with me.
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, so basically it's interesting when I said to you I want to talk about peace, you kind of looked at me and laughed and said it's like a dirty word. And yet your whole career for decades has been about cultivating peace. So what did you mean when you said that peace is a dirty word?
Yes, well, cultivating peace actually was given an ordination instead of a rabbinic ordination, but Reb Zalman Schechter Shalomi, kind of one of the spiritual mentors and of the Jewish Renewal, founder of the Jewish Renewal movement in the USA, at least, ordained me as a Rodef Shalom, as a seeker or pursuer of peace, because I was active for 25 years in creating many, many NGOs and hundreds of encounters and meetings, bringing Israelis and Palestinians together, sheikhs, rabbis, priests, Christian, Druze, religious leaders praying for peace, the big hug of Jerusalem, interfaith Ramadan dinners, peace meditation, peace walks, peace vigils, pretty much solidly a global leader for interfaith initiatives for Israeli Palestinian peace and dialogue and encounter. So I have been in the trenches on the front lines for decades doing that work. Why is peace a dirty word? Well, after Oslo peace process, right? Israelis and Palestinians pressured by world leaders to talk and come up with an agreement. The Oslo process collapsed, and both societies associate now the word shalom, tahalich shalom, peace process, with a specific failure um, of Oslo, a specific peace process. But both societies, and especially Israelis, had hope, high hopes. Many Israelis had high hopes that finally we could end this cycle of despair, and bloodshed, and violence with a formula called Land for Peace. And that formula was a catastrophe and a disaster. So ever since then, hearts that were once opened, at least among my friends and our chevre in Achlaot and Jerusalem and around the world, for peace, for quote unquote peace with the other, has become shattered, and people have descended into cynicism and despair. So many Israelis would say, "What are you talking about peace? If you mean land for peace, a specific formula of giving up parts of the biblical homeland of the land of Israel, Judea and Samaria and Gaza, to the Palestinians that many consider an enemy, if that's the definition of peace, PEAC, then we're definitely not for that." Um,
Mhm.
yes. So a lot of Israelis and our community, especially, which tend to be religious and universal, formerly universalists who've become Baalei Tshuva and religious and moved to Israel, can become the most passionate lovers of the land of Israel. And you can even say many have become more right wing politically in the political spectrum in
Mhm.
Israel, in
Yeah, I mean,
Israeli politics.
I definitely think that I've started leaning more, but I don't even like those terms, leaning more to the right, but I don't like those terms. And I guess I just want to bust out that with you, like let's just throw that away. Let's just throw that context in which the word peace is being used as some sort of political process, right? At
Yes,
least as a
yes,
beginning, because in my mind, peace is not a political process, but a spiritual process. And and that's sort of what I want to talk out with you and talk about with you is what do we mean when we say the word peace? Because you just sort of gave the definition of like when I said, what does it mean that peace is a dirty word? And sort of you gave the context of peace as used within like the failed Oslo process and the, just never ending war essentially that Israel has been engaged in since you could say even before 1947 in order for its right to exist in various permutations. Um, and included in that is the conflict that we have now with our cousins here in the land. And
By the way, if you speak with Arabs, and I know a lot of our friends don't even like to use that term Palestinian, they say it's not an actual entity. I have no fear if it's your culture and if it's your belief, that's what you should call yourself. I have no problem using the term Palestinian, as my
mm,
late Rabbi Menachem Froman of Tekoa happily and eagerly used in his dialogue with his partners.
mm,
If you ask them also, they're just as cynical. When you say peace, they'll say, with no justice. If there's no justice, no peace.
right.
And they always come back to that, the activists anyway, to that term justice. As long as there's occupation, as long as Gaza is under siege and under home demolitions and land grabbing by the radical right wing settlers and discrimination, that they say also peace is ridiculous and absurd. So each on our opposite ends of the spectrum,
Right.
everyone has thrown out
And
that word
and
peace.
that's where the problem, and that's why you said peace is a dirty word, because basically within that context it's like, well, what's the point of talking about peace? It's just not possible. Why is it not possible? Because human nature, whether you want to point the finger at the Jews or at the Arabs, it's like human nature is such that these people are corrupt, duplicitous, can't be trusted, out to get us, and there's no way we can make peace with them.
Right.
Right?
Whereas when we're praying every single day, we're saying, Oseh shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. It's part of our prayer. Bakesh v'shalom b'radfehu. It's in the Tehillim, in the Psalms of King David. We're commanded, seek peace and pursue it. So when I was spending time with the late Rabbi Menachem Froman, if you don't know who he was one of the founders of Gush Emunim, the return of Jews to Judea and Samaria. He was, the quote unquote settler movement and Jews returning to live in the West Bank. And he was like a mentor for me. And he met from Yasser Arafat to Hamas went to Gaza, went all over the Islamic world, trying to find religiously based solutions to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that the secular politicians have always failed in. And he always made this conclusion: if the peace process is just the secular and the liberal, jihad versus Mick world, is it just, is the jihad is against the idea that Israel is going to be a bastion of Western secularism in the traditional Islamic Middle East, and as that's the reason they see us as the greater jihad is against the West and America, and the lesser jihad against Israel and Zionism. So we're like the mini, jihad and the greater jihad. And he turned it around and said, we need to do a jihad for peace, a holy war for peace and harmony, not a holy war to kill each other, but a holy war against the fear and the hatred, which they would call the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, the Sitra Achra, which makes the brothers, the children of Abraham, turn to hate each other. And the problem is also, of course, secular nationalism, when brought in, is always like an exclusive venture when you're talking about nation state and nationalism. And how do you bring in a spiritual vision and a vision of the prophets, where the prophet Isaiah, when he spoke about the Har Habayit, the Temple Mount, he said, Beiti Yikra Beit Tfilah Lekol Amim, my house will be a house of prayer for all people. So my debate with a lot of my chevre in over the years is, what is it first, Beiti? Or do we have to establish that this is my house? Then it's as me, as the Jewish people, and our return after 2,000 years to the Holy Land. And first we have to establish our boundaries and our borders and army and security. First it's my house, then we can say, let's make peace with all of the nations. Or is my house the house of God, the house of Hashem? Hashem is saying, This land is my house, and this world is my house, and my house will be a house of prayer, lekolami, for all of the
That's the
nations.
thing
So
is that
that universal and particularism, that tension, is built into our faith and to our relations, how we relate to the other.
yeah, and that idea of that universal, house of prayer for all nations that at the same time occurs within every single individual at walking with God.
Yeah.
That vision in my mind, is really what I go towards when I think about peace. And I am still wanting to talk out just like what do I mean when I say the word peace? Because I have that cynicism inside me, right? I have that cynicism that's just, that looks at the idea of peace in the Middle East. Like I once heard someone say status quo forever, meaning like as long as we're winning, let's just keep it that way. Let's just assume there's going to be a conflict, and let's just do the best we can to continually manage this conflict because the conflict is never going to go away, right? And there's always just going to be, bad actors that we're going to have to deal with. So let's just manage it and make sure that we're on the winning, like make sure that we're winning, that we're the side that's winning, and Zeu, that's how it's going to be.
Now,
And
Rabbi Shlomo Karlebach, you and I were in circles like in Nachlaot and the Moshav, and a lot of your friends probably watching this podcast know who Reb Shlomo is. And Reb Shlomo, he was friends actually. He knew Rabbi Meir Kahana, right? And Rabbi Meir Kahana, some of those say Kahana Tzadak, that there'll always be a war, us versus them, the Arabs versus the Jews. Since the 1920s, the 1930s, the 48 war, 67 war, until this week when there's terrorist attacks and rockets from Gaza. It's Esav Soned Yaakov. We're destined just to hate each other and to kill each other. And let's be realists. So Kahana Tzadak. This is what they say. If you're realistic, Kahana was right. It's just us versus them, and that's the nature of it. Reb Shlomo once, I heard this story that he said to Rabbi Meir Kahana, he said, "You see the world as it is. It could be you're right. Could be you're right. We're destined. Israel versus Palestine and the Holy Land. It's a zero-sum game. We're two peoples who have a triumphalist vision. We have a fantasy that one day when Messiah comes, there will be no more Arabs here. And they have a vision. One day all of Palestine will be liberated. All of Palestine is Arab, Muslim, Waqf land, and no Jews. Both sides have this exclusivist vision. And it could be that's the realism. Or, as Reb Shlomo said, we need to put on our Mashiach glasses, our Messiah glasses, to see the world with the eyes, not of Yerushalayim Shalamala, the Jerusalem Post headlines any day. Open up the website today, tomorrow, next week, of Haaretz, of Arutz Sheva, Jerusalem Post, left, right, and center. And it's the same. It's depressing headlines, no chance of vision of peace. So Reb Shlomo said, no, 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 to Reb Meir Kahana, you need to see the world with the eyes of Mashiach, to see the spark of Mashiach in every situation. Yes, there's a harsh realism, and we can say that's Yerushalayim Shalamata, the Jerusalem of the lower worlds that we're in today. The lower brokenness of this world is Yerushalayim Shalamata. But Yeru, you will see Yerushalayim. The word Shalayim is the double of the word Shalom. The word Shalom has Shalayim is the double form of the word Shalom is Shalayim. Yerushalayim, you will see. Yeru means you will see, and it means there's two Jerusalems. This is the earthly Jerusalem, and this is what we're talking about when we talk about today's headlines, today's terrorist attack,
that's the earthly Jerusalem.
or the judiciary taking over the government, Netanyahu or Bibi or Hamas or Fatah or whatever it is. That's earthly Jerusalem. Or there's a vision of a heavenly Jerusalem, Yerushalayim Shamala. That's the world. Yerushalayim Shamala is,
and that's the thing is that's the change in consciousness. Is in I
yeah,
think
that's a change of consciousness. And our job is to try to bring the two together, to bring the heaven down to earth in this broken world.
And I think that is the key. And I have to tell you a dream I had, by the way. That is the key, is to bring down that consciousness, because then the word peace makes sense, right? If peace is something that's a higher state of consciousness in which we truly recognize that we don't have to be in conflict, in which we truly recognize that to a certain extent, conflict is man-made, that it's not
Yeah.
a destiny. It's like, just as, like, my phone is made in China, this conflict is also made in Israel slash made in Palestine, if you want to use that word, slash made by the defense in weapons industry, slash it's like this conflict is not.
And I would say spiritually, it's made by the Yetzer Hara, the Sitra Achra, that the negative power and the negative force is dancing and celebrating. Look at
Right.
them.
and
They're
and that and that's the
world
thing.
of chaos, a
Doesn't have
tove
to be this
vohu,
way.
destruction, Gog and Magog. It's
Right.
here. Let's just let them,
Right. And it
you
doesn't
know,
have to be this way. And that's the
right.
whole point, is that it doesn't have to be this way. And that's that bigger vision, right? That big
What?
vision where peace isn't a dirty word, is an understanding that actually I don't have to live in a state of fear, right? I
Yes.
don't have to live in a state of fear, and I can be open-hearted, and I don't
Yeah.
have to live in a constant self-fulfilling prophecy that because I'm afraid, I then lash out, which then causes a reaction, which then causes another reaction, which then causes another reaction, and it's more fear and fear and
Yes.
fear
Yeah.
and fear.
Fear and trauma. And we also, as Jews, have 2,000 years of trauma and the Holocaust. And we're living, reliving the Holocaust and reliving the attempt to destroy us and the 48 war. Every day is a battle for 1948 all over. And, it's a hard way to, yeah, to have a higher vision of hope and inclusiveness when you're in a daily war. So the
But that's
fight or
that's
flight,
that's the whole.
the reptilian brain takes over, not the limbic and like the higher consciousness, but the brain of they're out to get me and I have
Right.
to like build a
Right. And we have
wall
to
and
get
build a
into those
fence.
prefrontal lobes. We have to get
Yeah,
into the cerebral cortex.
the
And
reptilian
that's
brain.
where we're able to engage in abstract and complex thought. And that's where we don't have to be in a state of survival, fight or flight, dog eat dog. And that's that higher consciousness that we need to bring. And I think that consciousness
And that
actually.
consciousness is actually is shalom. And shalom is also the word in Hebrew for wholeness, shalem or shlemut. And
Mhm.
Rav Kook talked about this. I really like Rav Kook when he said we need to find the sparks of holiness, even in the contradictory opposites. That's also the way of the Talmud, the way of the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel. And we find a truth, but there's opposite versions of the truth, of what is actually true. And sparks of it are here and sparks of it are there. Maybe sparks of it are in secular Zionism. Sparks of it might be in the Hilltop Youth. Sparks of it might be among a
Right.
Palestinian
And
Sufi
so that's
or
where
among the
that's
Palestinian perspective. It's our job to lift up the sparks
and that's
that
where
are
I love the term
that
peace
are
now.
hidden all in all of these opposite realities.
Right.
They're
That's where I love
opposite
the term peace now, but it's really peace here and now.
here and now, right?
It's like
Here
when
and
I
now.
it's not just peace now, because it's like, yeah, let's have peace now, right now between us. Let's have peace right now in this moment. Let's have peace, right? Let's get here
Right.
and now and
Right.
drop all of the stories and drop all the judgments. Maybe we should start a movement
Right.
called Peace Here and Now,
He's
right?
here and now. Yeah,
Instead
and
of
I had a friend in Tekoa because he was an activist and he created an organization called Shalom Ledorot, Peace for Generations. It's not just this kind of this. There is a sense of peace now. Like I want results now, and
right.
a spiritual vision to be an activist is um, it might be broken world now. Maybe there isn't peace that will happen now, but let us plant the seeds. Let us plant the
Yeah.
seeds of hope. And in a future time, it could be 200 years from now, is it's when it's we, the children of Abraham, Isaac and Ishmael, the brothers, we buried our shared father. I'm a tour guide, guys, in Hebron. I'm every single week for 11 years leading dual narrative tours to Hebron, to Al Halil. And I have a Palestinian partner that takes my tourists onto the Arab side, and I go to the Jewish side. I work with Zipi Schlissel and Noam Arnon. and Ishai Fleischer
Yeah,
on the Jewish
listen,
side.
we're about
And
to end. So
and so
tell us how
that
people can get in touch
Abraham
with
is
you.
calling to his children, get it together. Isaac and Ishmael, you are my children. Don't kill each other. Don't hate each other. You're cousins. You're more than cousins. You are brothers. Okay, you have a dispute about the mothers, Hagar and Sarah. It's true, but that's just a little bit of dysfunctional family dynamic. Your family. Let's find a way to look beyond this
How
exclusive
can people
nationalism to a greater
get
vision.
in touch with you? How can people do book a dual narrative tour, and then I have to tell you this dream, and then we're gonna have to sign it off.
Okay, so people can just simply go to a website of a, if they're secular, not religious, but secular Israelis run this company called Abraham Tours, and they have Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays Hebron dual narrative tours, and on Wednesdays I do a Gaza border reality tour, and I actually lived myself on the Gaza border in the Tivot and Yoshivia for 4 years, so I tell that story, and we meet people from Gaza as well. So Wednesdays is the Gaza border tour, and Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Hebron dual narrative tour.
Mm. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you the dream that I had because again, like in terms of a spiritual solution, I had a dream in 2007. I was living in New Paltz, New York at the time. And I had a dream, and it was sort of like one of these science fiction dreams in which there were like these two sides living in this would seem like a space station or something like that. And there was
Yeah.
the human side and the alien side. And the human side had these like futuristic guns, and helmets, like sort of like space suit slash war suits, right? And they were fighting these aliens who were these weird lizard people with tails and purple armor. And it was like, and there was this giant hexagonal airlock, right? And they were fighting back and forth across this line, across this airlock,
Mm-hmm.
right? And at the beginning of the dream, it was like, okay, so clearly the good guys are the humans, the bad guys are the aliens, and we want the humans to win. But as the dream was going on, I saw that both sides were doing such horrible things that the humans, as well as these lizard aliens, were doing such horrible, horrific things to each other that at the end of the dream, I didn't know who was the good guy and who was the bad guy anymore,
Right.
right? Because it was
It's
just so horrific. And the entire time the dream was happening, this voice was saying over and over, the only thing that separates you from this is charity. The only thing that separates you from this
tzedakah,
is charity.
tzedakah.
The
Yeah.
only thing that separates you from this is tzedakah. That's it. That's what it said. No Oslo,
Right.
no like smoke a joint, no like anything like
Right.
that, no meditation. It was just the only thing that separates you from this is giving to charity, giving tzedakah.
Compassion, compassion, compassion. Yeah,
And
compassion.
so and so I really think that like for me, that's my solution. Whenever I see what's going on, my own personal little spiritual solution is I need to give more tzedakah because that's the dream that I had.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely
It's
give
that we're
the
not necessarily going to figure it out with our conscious minds. We're not
no,
going to
no,
figure it out.
no, no, and that is the arrogance to say actually in English, I used to run an organization called Jerusalem Peacemakers, but actually that's a Christian term. It's like, oh, I'm a peacemaker. No, in Judaism, Hakadosh Baruch Hu is the peacemaker. Allah is the peacemaker. But
Mm-hmm.
we can seek peace and we can run after it. My joke is,
Right.
I have 6 children now, and my youngest boys, I'm Rodef Shalom means I'm running after my little boys, because
Right.
Shalom, the irony is to be a Rodef Shalom is that Shalom is always running away and you're always pursuing peace. Are you ever
Right.
catching peace? I don't know. Till now,
Right.
I can't say I caught peace. For
Right.
certainly, as a Jew, Shalom Bayit is the greatest peace. Get married and
Right.
try to make peace within yourself and with your holy wife. If you
Right.
could say you made peace with your wife, then call yourself a peacemaker. Until then,
Right.
be
Well,
humble.
may
Be
Hashem
humble.
bless us to pursue peace now inside and outside, and to also give lots of tzedakah.
Amen. Amen. Ken Ratzon.
Eliyahu, thank you so much for schmoozing with me about this.
Absolutely. If anybody wants to get in touch for further conversations, happy to meet up with anyone.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
The Hitro.
Go to. Go to.
Bye bye.